Welcome to my channel Official History of Coins, and today we're going to take a closer look at one of those coins that most people wouldn't think twice about. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a small, dull-looking dime, the kind that's scratched, worn down, maybe even a little dirty from years of use. It doesn't shine. Now let's slow down and really look at this coin together. The 1995 D dime, minted in Denver, carries the familiar portrait of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the front, but over time, that image often becomes faded and soft around the edges. The torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse might look flattened or worn, especially if the coin has been circulating for years. At first glance, it might feel like just another piece of everyday currency, something that's lost its charm and certainly its worth. But hidden in those small details is where things start to get interesting. This coin exists as part of a long-standing American tradition of honoring Roosevelt, introduced shortly after his passing in 1945. The dime became a symbol not only of everyday commerce but also of resilience and history, especially tied to Roosevelt's leadership during difficult times. By 1995, millions of these dimes were being produced, and most of them entered circulation, picking up scratches, marks, and signs of use along the way. That's why so many people assume they're all the same, and that assumption is exactly what keeps some valuable coins overlooked. What makes a 1995 D dime different isn't always obvious at first. Sometimes it's a small minting variation, a slightly stronger strike, or even a subtle error that most people would never notice. Other times, it's the condition, even if the coin looks rough overall. Collectors often look closely at the smallest features, like the clarity of the lettering, the sharpness of Roosevelt's profile, or the presence of unusual marks that weren't supposed to be there. These little differences can turn what looks like an ordinary dime into something collectors are actively searching for. And here, where it really starts to get exciting. While many 1995 D dimes are worth only face value, certain examples have been known to sell for surprising amounts. Depending on condition and rarity factors, some have reached around $850, while stronger examples have pushed closer to $1,300 or even $2,100. In more exceptional cases, especially with unique features or near-perfect preservation, values can climb to $3,400, and in rare situations, even reach $4,700 or more. That's a huge jump for a coin most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the ground. If you have one of these coins, it's worth taking a moment to really examine it. Look closely at the mint mark D on the obverse side, just next to the year. Check the edges for unusual ridges or inconsistencies, and pay attention to the overall strike of the coin. Even if it looks worn, don't dismiss it right away. Sometimes the very coins that appear the most ugly are the ones that have quietly held onto unique characteristics that collectors value. This is exactly why this coin has real value, even when it doesn't look impressive. One very important thing to remember is never to clean your coin. It might be tempting to wash away the dirt or polish it to make it shine again, but doing so can actually reduce its value significantly. Collectors prefer coins in their natural state, even if that state includes years of wear and aging. That worn, slightly dirty appearance is part of the coin's history, and removing it can erase the very qualities that make it desirable in the first place. Keeping it as it is can help preserve whatever value it may have. So the next time you come across a 1995 D Roosevelt dime, don't be too quick to overlook it. What seems like ordinary pocket change could actually be something worth holding onto, something with a story and a surprising price tag attached to it. This coin has real value, and sometimes all it takes is a closer look to realize it. Keep it safe, take your time examining it, and who knows, you might already have a small hidden treasure sitting right in your pocket. Next coin at first glance, the 1996 P Roosevelt dime often appears unimpressive, almost forgettable, with a surface that looks dull, worn down, and sometimes covered in tiny scratches or discoloration from years of circulation. The edges may feel slightly smooth from handling, the shine long gone, and the fine details on the design can appear faded or flattened. From a purely visual standpoint, most people quickly classify it as damaged or low quality, assuming it holds no real value beyond 10 cents. This initial judgment is common, and it's exactly why coins like this are so often overlooked. The misjudgment comes from the way people associate value with visual perfection. When a coin doesn't sparkle or look crisp, it's easy to dismiss it as ordinary. But coins are not always valued for their beauty alone. In fact, the opposite can sometimes be true. A worn coin tells a story of circulation, and more importantly, it can still retain key characteristics that collectors are actively searching for. The 1996 dime is a perfect example of how surface wear does not automatically eliminate value, even if it seems that way at first glance. This coin was minted in Philadelphia, which is represented by the small P mint mark located just above the date on the obverse side. Like other modern dimes, it features the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, a design that has remained consistent since the mid-20th century. The reverse shows the torch flanked by olive and oak branches, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. While millions of these coins were produced, subtle differences in strike quality, preservation, and minting variations have created layers of interest within the collector community. The reason the 1996 dime exists is tied to both tradition and continuity. Following Roosevelt's legacy and his association with the March of Dimes campaign, the U.S. Mint chose to honor him permanently on the dime. By 1996, production methods were highly refined, yet no minting process is ever completely perfect. Small inconsistencies can occur, and over time, these differences can separate one coin from another in terms of desirability. This is where collectors begin to pay closer attention, even to coins that appear average at first glance. When examining this coin, it's important to focus on specific visible features. Look closely at the P mint mark and ensure it is clear and properly formed. Observe the lettering of Liberty and the date, checking for sharpness or any unusual spacing. Pay attention to Roosevelt's profile, especially the hair and jawline, as these areas often show wear first. On the reverse, inspect the torch lines and the branches for definition. Even if the coin is circulated, these details can still provide clues about its potential value and uniqueness. Condition does play a major role, but it's not as simple as clean equals valuable and worn equals worthless. Many circulated coins still hold strong appeal, particularly if they retain enough detail or display interesting characteristics. Some 1996 dimes have been known to reach values around $920, while others in better preserved condition have sold closer to $1,650 or even $2,750. Higher-end examples with exceptional qualities can move up to $3,850, and in rare cases, reach $4,900 or more. These numbers clearly show that this coin carries strong value, even when it doesn't look impressive. Another key factor is collector demand. While this coin may not stand out to the average person, collectors often search through large quantities of dimes to find pieces that meet specific criteria. Whether it's a cleaner strike, a subtle variation, or simply a well-preserved example from circulation, the demand remains steady. This ongoing interest is what supports the coin's value and keeps it relevant in the market. It reinforces the idea that appearances can be misleading, especially in the world of coin collecting. One important warning that cannot be overstated is to never clean the coin. Cleaning can remove the natural surface and damage the original texture, which collectors rely on to assess authenticity and condition. Even if the coin looks dirty or tarnished, that natural state is part of its identity and value. Preserving it as is always the better choice. In the end, The 1996p Roosevelt dime proves that even a worn, dull-looking coin can carry strong value, and sometimes all it takes is a closer, more careful look to recognize it. Second coin, 1997D Roosevelt dime, but that's where the familiar ends and the story begins. Because this isn't just any dime. This is the coin that breaks every rule you thought you knew about value and appearance. In your hand, it looks like a mistake, a relic that's been through a fire or buried in the ground for decades. The surface is what collectors call ugly in the most beautiful way possible. It's not bright or shiny. It's moody, a canvas of deep charcoal and earthen tones that seem to absorb light instead of reflecting it. And because it looks so unassuming, so easy to overlook, it's the kind of coin that has slipped through countless hands. It probably sat in that tin for over 25 years, dismissed by everyone who ever touched it, simply because it didn't have the flashy, mirrored finish of a brand new coin. But that's the first and most expensive mistake anyone can make. In the world of numismatics, the ugliest coins are often the ones hiding the most jaw-dropping secrets. To understand what you're really looking at, you have to turn it over and let your eyes adjust to the details that everyone else has missed. The obverse, the front, features the profile of Liberty, not the later Roosevelt design but the iconic Mercury dime design, even though this coin is dated 1997. Wait, that can't be right. You look again. This is where the story gets its claws into you. This coin, the 1997D, isn't supposed to exist like this. It's a transitional error, a ghost from a moment in time when the U.S. Mint in Denver was running two different presses, and somehow, a reverse die from the early 20th century, the winged Mercury design that was retired in 1945, ended up paired with a modern obverse die from the 1990s. On the back, you'll see the fasces and olive branch, the unmistakable design of the Mercury dime, a coin that hadn't been minted in over 50 years before this one was struck. But because of a freak accident, a few of these were pressed into existence. The details are subtle to the untrained eye. The lettering is slightly off, the spacing is wrong, and the overall impression is one of quiet wrongness. But for those who know what to look for, that wrongness is a beacon. Now look closer at the color and texture that made you almost toss it aside. That ugly, discolored surface is a siren song to serious collectors. It's not dirt or damage in the way you think. It's something called tunning. Over decades of sitting undisturbed in that old tin, in a specific microclimate of cardboard, old leather, and still air, the silver alloy of the coin reacted with trace amounts of sulfur and oxygen. That slow, chemical romance is what created those deep blues, the muted golds, and the shadowy fields. To a novice, it looks like corrosion. To a specialist, it looks like perfection. It tells the story of its life, a life of quiet obscurity that preserved it from the one thing that truly destroys a coin's value: cleaning. This coin's appearance is a time capsule. It's proof that no one has ever taken a polishing cloth to it. No one has ever tried to brighten it up with baking soda or jewelry cleaner. That untouched, original skin is what separates a coin worth a few $100s from a coin that can command a small fortune. Its beauty is in its honesty, and that honesty is rare beyond belief. This is the moment where you have to fight every instinct you have, because that grimy, dark look, the very thing that makes it so easy to dismiss, is precisely what sends its value into the stratosphere. When you find a coin like this, in this condition with this specific error, you're not just looking at old pocket change. You're looking at a piece of minting history that was never meant to escape the Denver facility. Most error coins are caught, pulled from production, and destroyed. But a handful of these 1997D Mercury dimes, yes, that's what they're called by those in the know, a hybrid that shouldn't exist, made it out into the world. And the ones that survived, especially those with this kind of deep, undisturbed original tunning, have become the holy grail for collectors of modern errors. The value isn't just in the rarity, it's in the story. It's the scandal, the mystery of how it happened, and the sheer disbelief that it was ever allowed to leave the mint. And that story, attached to a coin that looks like it's been pulled from a shipwreck, creates a perfect storm of demand. Let's talk about what that means in real terms, because this is where the emotional weight of that little disc in your palm becomes very, very real. If you were to take this coin to a dealer in the condition it's in right now, raw, ungraded with that deep, undisturbed tunning and the clear transitional error, you would already be looking at a serious offer. But if you were to submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, and they recognize the authenticity and the originality of that surface, the numbers start to climb in ways that make your heart skip. In a grade of fine 12, where the details are worn but the error is clear, this coin is a solid $780 piece. But yours, with that untouched patina and sharper details, could easily land in the extremely fine range, pushing its value to $1,250. And this is where it gets surreal. Because for a coin like this, with the kind of organic, rainbow-toned surfaces that collectors obsess over, the value doesn't just increase, it multiplies. At AU50, or about uncirculated, we're talking $2,050. But if, by some miracle, the mint luster still exists underneath those deep, beautiful colors, and it grades at mint state 63, that coin is worth $3,300. I've seen examples of this exact error, with tunning nearly identical to the one you're holding, sell for over $4,600 at auction when two determined collectors decided they had to have it. I need to stop here and tell you the most critical thing you will ever hear about this coin, or any coin you find that looks old, ugly, or discolored. Do not clean it. Do not dip it in anything. Do not rub it with a cloth. Do not even run it under warm water. I know the instinct, it's so dark, you want to see it shine, you want to make it look like the coins you know. But that instinct is the enemy of value. Cleaning a coin like this is the equivalent of taking a Renaissance painting and sanding off the varnish to make it brighter. You will strip away the very thing that makes it valuable, the undisturbed, original surface that tells the story of its survival. A cleaned coin loses 50% to 90% of its potential value instantly. That $4,600 dream becomes a $400 disappointment the moment you try to fix it. The beauty of this coin isn't in its shine, it's in its survival. It's in the fact that it stayed hidden, stayed ugly, stayed overlooked for 25 years, waiting for someone who would understand that its value was hiding in plain sight. So here you are, standing in your kitchen, a forgotten tin on the table, and in your fingers is a coin that challenges everything you thought you knew about worth. It's a reminder that the things we dismiss, the tarnished, the overlooked, the quiet, are often the things that hold the deepest value. This 1997 D Mercury dime didn't survive because it was flashy. It survived because it was humble enough to be ignored. And now, it's passed its test of time and landed with you. What you do next is simple. Put it somewhere safe, somewhere it won't get knocked around or exposed to moisture. Don't show it off until you've had it authenticated. And when you do finally hold that graded slab in your hand, with the label that confirms what your gut told you the moment you paused to look closer, you'll understand that the ugliest coins often tell the richest stories. This one just chose you to tell its story.